huge changes in the system. We're here for that. And my name is Nailah. I'm the secretary for SERCAL. I've been on the board for several years, and it's my honor to introduce our next keynote speaker. Nailah Pope Harden is the executive director of the Climate Plan. In her role there, she's responsible for expanding the network presence, cultivating new members, and ensuring the mission and vision of the organization are carried out. She comes to this position with years of community organizing and coalition building experience that spans neighborhood, regional, state, and national social justice campaigns. The through line in Nailah's personal and professional life has always been ensuring her son has a healthy, safe, loving environment and future, which is what I think a lot of us here are committed to as well for our communities. She does this by building community everywhere she goes, learning from those around her, and being open to transformative change. She's local here in Sacramento, and we at SERCAL have always been enamored of Nailah. She presented at a past conference on the Morrison Creek Revitalization Project with a talk called "Equity is Not Salt. We Need to Add Spice." You'll get a tidbit of that. And from there, she worked closely with us on the board to conduct diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, which has helped me, myself, and our entire board, we hope, to bring us closer together, to be more thoughtful, and to be more effective leaders in what we do. And we hope that that's reflected. And all this is to say, we're huge fans of Nailah. Thank you for being here.
I'm huge fans of SERCAL as well. I was at a wedding last night and I lost my voice, which is a testament to how good the wedding was. All right. So I want to talk to you guys about the little community that could, which is the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's in South Sacramento, which is like the south side of every city you guys grew up in. It's a community where resources are sucked out of or not even ever reach, right? Because we're investing in the city centers. It is a community where there's about, the racial makeup of the community is about 30% African-American, 30% Southeast Asian, 30% Hispanic, and the rest is a mix of everyone else. So diverse, beautiful. When I was thinking about what I would say in this presentation, this James Baldwin quote is what really stuck out to me. I kept coming back to it. James Baldwin was writing a letter to his nephew in the 70s, and he was explaining like what it's like to be a Black man in America and what his nephew should expect growing up. And in here he says, "And now, you must survive because we love you." And that's how I feel about my neighborhood. That's why we survive. That's why we do this work, because we love each other, because we have to, because we just must. So we're gonna walk through my story, but also the story of my neighborhood, but also the story of just a half mile. What I want you to keep in mind is this is just a half-mile strip that we're talking about with the Morrison Creek project. In your neighborhoods, in your communities, there's half-mile strips that if invested in, if you're being intentional about, you could be transformative. So that's me. And I'm in the middle there with the great pose. What you can't see right here is this is where I'm radicalized. This is, for folks that are in Sacramento, this is the McKinley Rose Garden. I went to middle school in downtown Sacramento at Sutter Middle School. And on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I caught the bus. I'd have to catch bus 61, then I'd have to catch bus 68 or 67, and I would get dropped off at the Rose Garden. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, our friend's mom would take us to work, but she also dropped us off right at that Rose Garden. Every day, 5 days a week, I watched. When we got to South Sacramento, we started here. And then we got more roses, more vegetation, more resources, greener gardens, until I got dropped off at the Rose Garden 5 days a week. And it became very apparent to me, my neighborhood didn't have rose gardens. few rose bushes, kept by some of the seniors and elders in the neighborhood, but we definitely didn't have rose gardens that the city maintained for us. And it just became this like incessant reminder every day that like I had to leave my neighborhood to have good stuff. Good stuff wasn't for us. So we had to capture it in pictures. So this is a sign that says Glen Elders. That's the neighborhood I grew up in. It was built in the 1970s, and it was built because a bunch of people of color were working for the military and had GI Bills the way they could buy homes. But some of the communities in California were redlined, and the communities in California where people of color could buy were full. So if you see, it's not very clear, but it says Sacramento's most beautiful interracial subdivision. That's how it was marketed to folks. If you look at it now, this is pretty CalEnviroScreen 3.0. We're all pretty familiar with CalEnviroScreen, but for folks that are not, basically red is bad, right? And this takes a lot of negative health indicators and weighs them amongst each other and weighs them amongst all the communities in California. So I really should get the blown up version, because what you'll see is this is the yellow box in a sea of orange, surrounded by a sea of red. And honestly, one of the reasons this yellow box is yellow is because there are multiple parks and it's a little bit sparsely less diverse. So excuse the numbers a little bit, but I grew up Vallecito's way. We like to call ourselves the Valo Villains. And this is Glen Elders and Avondale. So as you can see, we are, in most cases, we qualify as a disadvantaged community, which depending on what your frame of reference is, sometimes being at the bottom of the list means we qualify now in California for more grant money, right? But that really what it means is we get more people seeping into our neighborhood trying to tell us what to do and how to survive. Very similar to what Brick is talking about. We are a community that's learned how to survive on our own for many years without resources. And now that we are labeled disadvantaged community, we have a bunch of folks trying to parachute in and save us. We don't need to be saved. This right here is Elder Creek Market. This is a few years ago. This is one of the places where I would walk and you could buy a banana or an orange on the counter. They have some of the best fried chicken. I would get my mom's lottery tickets there. This is on Elder Creek Road, which is a 5-lane highway. That is probably the most shade you will see or planting. It is a boulevard. We'll talk a little bit more about Elder Creek. Oh, okay, we'll keep it here. So in 2008, I'm going to take you guys on a journey. In 2008, a gas company wanted to come and pump natural gas, technically 2007, under our homes. They weren't going to contain it. The sediment rock under our homes was enough to contain it themselves. So they were coming and asking for the homeowners to give their mineral rights away. Most of the homeowners signed away because another thing about my neighborhood is it's about 60% renters. So if you're a homeowner, of course, no problem signing away those mineral rights. You don't even live there to begin with. A bunch of us got together. None of us are experts, but what we knew was it just didn't sound right. We knew that like pumping natural gas under our homes without many safety mechanisms just didn't sound right. So we started gathering folks. This is actually, we're talking to Ginger Rutland, who used to be an editor for the Sacramento Bee. And one of the things that we did was we just started calling people and saying, does this sound right to you or are we crazy? This is my community. That's actually my dad looking at the camera right there with the glasses. We drove down to the PUC and testified. For 5 years, we went to our city council, we went to our utility board, we went to the public utility board in San Francisco, and any body, public body that would hear us, and we said, this just doesn't feel right. We were lucky enough to stand in enough rooms where a few lawyers said, you know, we don't think it sounds right either, and we may be able to review 1 or 2 documents for you. We were able to After that, they were like, you know what, we looked into it. It doesn't sound right. We were able to get some environmentalists on board too. We said, hey, does this sound right to you guys? They said, no, it doesn't sound right either. 5 years, we went to everybody possible, and we were able to build a coalition of environmental lawyers, environmental advocates, different neighborhood groups to help us fight. We were successful, but let me say this. I don't believe it's because our efforts. Year 4 into us fighting for this, the San Bruno explosion happened. And we looked at them and we said, when we told you we didn't sound right, this is what we thought would happen. If you think this is such a good project, put it under your homes, not ours. I honestly think if San Bruno hadn't happened, we probably still would be fighting to this day, honestly. But this is us, happy faces, because we're in San Francisco at the PUC building. They just said that they're not going to give the natural gas company a permit. And then, so we're talking, this is 2012. The other thing that happened in 2008, right? We're in a recession. Our buses were cut. So when we were done with that natural gas fight, we said, well, wait, let's take on the buses. We want our bus back. We fought off a gas company. Maybe we can fight the public transportation system now. So we started going to those board meetings. We already had Tuesday nights booked, right? We're already going to meetings. Let's just find the next body. So this is me giving public comments at our RT board meeting in 2014, saying, we want a bus. We had a bus that was running through our neighborhood. They told us that our bus didn't pay for themselves, right? One of my favorite moments in this whole campaign is we were fighting for a bus, and they told us to run a bus in our neighborhood, it costs $300,000 a year, and we don't have enough revenue recovery to have a bus in our neighborhood. The executive director of regional transit happened to retire that year. Guess how much his retirement package was a year? Guess, come on. You know it. If ever there was a time where I was like, oh, this is what we mean by eat the rich. Like, we just take this guy out, we can get a bus. Like, I get it. I mean, it was almost dollar for dollar, exactly what he said we couldn't have. It's like, I know where we could get that money easily. So we fought. We filled our community center up with 200 people and told them to walk a mile in our shoes. Remember that street I showed you, Elder Creek? That was the street we had to walk down a mile to get to the closest bus stop. And we were successful. This one took 3 years. And we were successful. The buses got restored. And we retired. 7 years of Tuesday nights being ate up. And we said, you know, we're tired of things happening to our neighborhood, and we want to be proactive. We're tired of having to react to systems. What's something that we can do on our own? We were in the community center, and we were looking outside. We were sitting like over here. We were looking outside, and we saw Morrison Creek. And we said, what if we just do a creek cleanup? What if we just do a neighborhood cleanup, get everyone together and clean up the creek? But it's locked. So how do we unlock it? We need some people to donate pickers and bags. We kind of know some folks from the natural gas fight. We know a few folks from the RT fight. Maybe we can ask them to help. So we send out this email. Let me tell you, ignorance is bliss. We send out an email to probably 25 folks saying, there's this creek. We want to clean it up. We don't really know who has the keys. We need pickers and bags to clean it up. Can you help? So let me just say this before I go any further. I now am executive director of an organization that does climate advocacy across the state. So I'm gonna say some pretty spicy derogatory things, but know that I say it with love, okay? So we send this email out, and folks were like, hey, can we come look at it? We'd love to come just see it. Okay, sure, you can see the creek if that's gonna help you bring pickers and bags, sure. Folks showed up, y'all folks, with the zip off pants. We were like, and the hats. And we were like, oh, what is this? They said, oh, this creek is closed. We were like, yeah, that's why we emailed you. The creek is closed. And they hopped the fence and we were like. And then folks started pulling out tape measures, measuring easements. We just wanted the pickers and the bags and to unlock the gates. And we honestly had no idea who was in the room. But I'm gonna shout you out now. Yes. Department of Water Resources happened to be in the room. Esther, you weren't there yet. Your bosses were. And they said, we actually have this grant that's coming up where this can be more than just a cleanup. We can talk about revitalizing your space. And I'll never forget, it was Stefan who said, he said to me, ask me for a Porsche. I may only be able to get you a Toyota, but ask me for a Porsche. And for a community that's been every Tuesday night for the last 7 years, just fighting for like humanity, just fighting to not have gas pumped under us, just fighting for a bus, to be told to ask for a Porsche. We didn't even know where to begin. So, okay, this is gonna get wonky. I have to come back to that slide later. So where did we begin? We started doing cleanups. We just started to like be out on the creek, to be in it, to see, like, feel it. What does it feel like to have our bodies on the creek, to be in community, actually on the creek? We started doing tours. We started bringing the kids out. Oh, okay, now I can go back. We started to talk to folks about like what's in our neighborhood. So this is my neighborhood, Elder Creek Power Inn. That's that big road. You used to have to walk all the way over here. This is where our bus stops used to be, over here. So here's some beautiful things in our neighborhood. We have a bunch of temples and churches. We have a bunch of open land. You guys can see all the big patches of land. We have a George Sims Community Center, which is one of the most state-of-the-art community centers in Sacramento, completely tucked away in our neighborhood. We have a middle school up in that corner where that star is. We have an elementary school right there. We have all of these assets that we don't always see as assets, but we started to figure out, well, what if we started to treat them like assets? We have the creek that's right. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? The Blue Creek in the middle. All these assets though near the creek. Okay. So we started talking about it with the community. What do you guys want to see? Here's the wild part. It took about 3 years before we landed on a concept, because we're a community that's so used to not being given what we ask for, that the idea of asking for a Porsche felt so unrealistic. When it was like, in the beginning, it'd be like, ask for a Porsche. We were like, benches? It'd be great if we could possibly get benches. What we had to do was get our best Imagineers in the community. We got the elementary school kids. Okay, we started there. Some of their ideas were a petting zoo. Some of our ideas were like a farmer's market. Oh, sorry guys, these are just unorganized slides. Let's go back to like the land, right? If you see along the creek, there's also big patches of vacant lots. Some of them are city-owned. So we said, don't just think about this creek. Let's think about all the things surrounding the creek. Let's think about the connections to the creek. There's an elementary school right there. I think we wanted the petting zoo on that plot of land that's like right next to the elementary school star. Outdoor amphitheater, outdoor classroom for the elementary school, natural habitat where we can roam and meander. Just last week, this one really blows my mind, because I've been doing this for 5 years now on this project. And just like this week, actually, a child said, well, why don't we put like an observation dome out there so we can see stars? Bro, where were you? Yes, right? I'm like, yes, let's put it all out there. Okay, let's go. So we got the kids out there, and we also had to go to other creeks to help imagine. We had to say, okay, of course we can't imagine it in our community, but let's look at what other communities have. Let's start walking the American River Parkway. Let's start seeing, this one is either Poudre Creek or Arcade Creek. Poudre Creek is very close to where we are now. But let's start seeing what other neighborhoods have. Because this is what we're talking about, is a community that's had so many resources stripped from them, so many resources taken away, that the idea of just imagining just seemed impossible. Oh, we're at the end. Okay, so we did that for 3 years. We just did visioning workshop after visioning workshop, community meeting, visioning, talking about how we would use the creek, how we would be stewards of the creek. We got the elementary school involved. We got the middle school involved, the high school involved. We now have Sac State students that are working on it, college students who are part of this project. And we've roped in anybody we could. There were so many times when we would ask people, can you help us? And they would say no. And we'd say, well, can you just come to the creek and see what we're talking about? There was a man who worked for the flood control district for the city once, and he was mean. He was like, this is a floodplain. You can't touch it. You can't change it, blah, blah, blah. We're sending email back and forth. He was like, absolutely not. I would never approve this project, blah, blah, blah. And we said, can you just come see the creek? Okay, let me find a good picture for us for this. Okay, so you see that elementary school? Right here, over here is where the community center is. So we were standing about where that tree is, and we said, you know, we want to just help the elementary school students get to the community center without having to walk on these busy streets. Like, and we gave him the whole tour and the whole spiel. By the end of it, he was standing right at that tree and he goes, I think Bill and Melinda Gates would donate to this. It's one of those projects where it's just the yummiest of projects, and it's only a half mile that we're talking about. But there's economic development opportunities. We're talking about putting coffee shops on the creek, or how we can like fund, you know, future development and maintenance of the creek. There's all these vacant lots. We're talking about education because we're talking about outdoor classroom for the kids. We're talking about just community asset, walking on the creek. We now are talking about an observation dome. Is that what it's even called, y'all? Is it what? There we go, observatory. Y'all knew where I was going though. We're talking about an observatory. Like, we're talking about so many things that could happen on this half-mile creek. Whatever, I tell people, whatever your social justice issue is, we got it here. We're also, another thing that really slowed us down is, I really should have organized these slides better, y'all. I kid you not. You see under the creek, there's a lot of trash. Those are from our unhoused neighbors. Listen to how I said that, our unhoused neighbors. They are the ones who use the creek now. We never wanted this project to displace them or harm them in any way. Because what shame would it be that the folks that are actually utilizing this space don't actually get to use it in the future? Imagine if like we were gentrifying our own creek from our unhoused neighbors, right? But to that, a lot of people were scared, like if we build this, are we gonna gentrify our own neighborhood? How much investment are we gonna put into this creek only to have housing prices go up? So we moved really slow because we wanted to make sure we were answering all the questions. We wanted to figure out, I mean, I don't know, maybe I just need this slide multiple times. We're talking about how do we make this area over here safe ground so our unhoused neighbors can move to this side of the creek. So they can have a spot to camp, to be safe, and that other neighbors can feel safe while they're walking on the creek as well. Who do we need to partner with to make sure that the housing prices in this neighborhood don't go up, so the people that have lived here, invested here, the people the community was built for, get to still pass along generational wealth and home and community knowledge? How do we make sure that we're empowering Elder Creek Market? That's right here, right by the creek. You can actually walk to the creek from there. How do we make sure we're impacting local businesses? And so we spent a lot of time asking a lot of questions, bringing on a lot of partners. These are some of our partners that we brought on. This is Chris Bowles, who was at the original meeting where I was told to ask for a Porsche. And Chris Bowles is a ecological engineer and has a firm out here, and he said, we're in. I said, we don't have any money to pay you. He said, I don't care, we're in. He's the one who printed up those, what do you call them? Those, y'all know what it's called. There we go. There we go. Almost free of charge. We were able to get a small grant to just help cover materials, but he filled in the rest. So, okay. So I'm gonna do a pitch here, then we're just gonna run through the Creek project and what we're talking about. My neighborhood, the little neighborhood that could, is a collection of folks, and let me just say, this is where ignorance is bliss. We just ask everybody we can for help. We implement what we call in our neighborhood the one pancake rule. We did a pancake breakfast, and the rule was you just flip your own pancake. Just come and do what you can. There's so many neighborhoods near you that just need 5 hours of your time, an hour of your time. As professionals, as experts in your field, that just need to like, hey, this sounds funny. Are we crazy? Hey, we were told to dream of a Porsche, but we don't really know what's under the hood. Do you have any ideas on what we should ask for? I mean, so many people are now invested in our Morrison Creek project. It's crazy. And we need all the help we can get, because I have genuinely no idea how to revitalize a creek. But there are people out there that do, and I don't ever want to know how, right? I just want that to be your job, and I want to empower everybody who that's their job. My job is the community organizing. I'm the one who's going to bring the coffee. That's my job. All right, so let's run through this project really quick. And it's changed a little bit. So this is the portion of the creek where the community center is right here, the elementary school is right here. We want to, okay, also, as you guys can tell, I don't know all the words for this. So just like get there with me, okay? Because especially because you guys are the folks who really know the words. Okay, so we're gonna lower the grading. Okay. Lower the grading and put an outdoor amphitheater on the school, right outside the school site, so the kids can get almost to the creek and have an outdoor classroom and have seating outside. Then we're gonna put a bridge so that the elementary school students that are in the after school program at the community center don't have to walk across Lemon Hill, which right now the speed limit on Little Lemon Hill is about 50 miles per hour and the visibility, horrible. So those kids will get a gate, will be able to just hop on a bridge and cross over. Right here, where the community center is, we're gonna lower the grading again. We're gonna put natural plants and native species into the ground. We're gonna create meandering paths with benches, and it's gonna be its own little nature center. One thing that isn't on here that I've been saying since day one is benches, but that you can solar power charge your phones. I don't know if they're there. I was told to ask for a Porsche. That's my big ask. Since the observation place is new, observatory, thank you. I don't know, it could go in the natural place. We still have to figure out a place for that, but we'll find one. Oh, I didn't do the other one. So after we cross Lemon Hill, it's just houses back to back. Go back to my trusty slide. Okay, so we were that part of the project. From Lemon Hill, this street, all the way down, we're gonna put up a sound wall, we're gonna fix the path, and we're gonna be able to do community murals for almost a half mile. Come on now, generation after generation after generation. Right? And then we're gonna cross. So this is the other thing. We talked to everybody. The middle school students, the middle school is over there. We said, do you guys, so right now our unhoused neighbors use the creek, middle schoolers use it too. Fun fact, unhoused neighbors were tired of middle school because middle schoolers are middle schoolers. So there's a bridge right at 63rd Street, and the unhoused neighbors were requiring the middle schoolers to pay because the middle schoolers were just so middle schooler. And I was like, economic development, I don't have a problem with it because I'm not a fan of middle schoolers, conceptually. And so what we're gonna do though is fix that bridge. And we're gonna make it so that the middle schoolers have access and they don't have to get on any main roads outside of that first crossing. And they can walk along the creek to the community center. Just by asking the right questions. So I want to leave with this quote, which is Ta-Nehisi quote. This is one of my favorite quotes. When I read Between the World and Me, and I read this quote specifically, it is another time where I felt radicalized. So in this, he's writing to his son, and he's looking, the book is dedicated to his son, and he's looking at his son, and he's just in awe. And he says, when I was your age, fully 1/3 of my brain was concerned with whom I was walking to school with, our precise number, the manner of our walk, the number of times I smiled, whom or what I smiled at, who I offered a pound or who did not, all of which is to say that I practiced the culture of the streets, a culture concerned chiefly with securing the body. For 7 years, we spent Tuesdays just securing our bodies. For the last 5 years, we've actually been able to dream and imagine. And I think oftentimes we lose, like, that's what's at stake here. That we have full communities that are spending 1/3 of their time just fighting to be set at normal, right? Set at good. How much are we wasting? There's so many Morrison Creek projects out there, but communities are bogged down with getting buses, stopping natural gas, stopping waste treatment plants, whatever the issue is, whatever community that's in the south side or the north side of whatever city you live in. There's folks that are spending 1/3 of their time just fighting. So that is my plea and my push is, what else could we be doing with 1/3 of their time? And so in the book, that's what he says. He goes, you get 1/3 of your brain that I never really got because I spent 1/3 of my brain just imagining. I do this work so that my son, his little free body, he's 4 now, he's not that cute. I've heard, talk about trashy people. 4-year-olds are horrible people, but he's sweet. And I do this work so that he doesn't have to spend 1/3 of his brain figuring out how we stop the next issue. I do this work so that he can spend that extra 1/3 of his brain running up and down Morrison Creek. So thank you guys for your time. Find the Morrison Creek in your neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so some Q&A. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the first groups that we partnered with was the Sacramento Community Land Trust. And in part of our partnership, one of the things that we're hoping is all of those vacant lots of land, the land trust will be able to purchase instead of it being in city ownership so that community has say over what's built there. The other thing that we've been in conversations about is figuring out how we create like a special district for the creek area to ensure that it has added protections. And then again, we make sure that our unhoused neighbors are at the table. We make sure that like diverse group of folks are at the table when we're making those decisions and having those conversations.
Yeah. So I know that you've worked really hard to be able to create ownership of this project. And I know that with all the entities that you're involved with, that's been difficult at times. Where are you now with that?
Well, we received a $700,000 grant from the Department of Water Resources to do planning. let me tell you guys also, I come from poverty, right? So when they said 700,000, I was like, ooh, we got a creek, let's go. It's ready to be built. We even got money for extra. Then I was told, we don't even have enough money for a plan. Like, what do you mean? So that's where we are. We are in the planning phase. We're doing feasibility studies right now. We actually have a creek cleanup coming up in a couple of weeks to bring the community back out on the creek. COVID really slowed us down, but we're bringing the community back on the creek to be able to do a cleanup and also have them weigh in on the first phase of plans. So that's where we are, I think. Yeah. Listen, I can't say that out. I can't give you the answer on a stage out loud. I'll give it to you privately. The answer is unfortunately no, as much as we tried. But to be fair, we are still like in the feasibility planning stages. And so we haven't really, hopefully as we move forward in the project in different stages, we are able to bring more local hire. One of the things that we are doing though is working with the local businesses to prepare them and for when the creek is developed. So Elder Creek Market that I showed you, it has now grown and has its own grocer and fruit stand that is a part of it. So we're getting more fresh fruits and vegetables in that market. So we're doing things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Questionable stuff. Yeah. Yes, no. So one of the things that happened pretty early on is the school district, if anyone's familiar with Sacramento Unified School District, they're a little wonky. And so for our creek project, we actually, for the outdoor, for the outdoor amphitheater, let's see if I can get a good aerial. We're actually not going to touch school property. So if you see how the beds are, we're just going to be working on the creek side right outside of the school. That way we don't have to get extra permitting and add in the school district as an extra partner on the project. So they're aware of it, they support it, but to loop them in and to use their school property, it's a whole nother layer to jump that we're going to avoid. Yeah.
So it seems like there's been a lot of work that's gone into it, from that perspective, there's not feeling that is in need of restoration. So my question is, how are you documenting and restoring this knowledge and these lessons of the
Great question. So we actually are working with students at Sac State in the anthropology department, and they are documenting it for us. Remember I showed you the sign that says Glen Elders is the first interracial or most beautiful interracial neighborhood. We actually do have pretty good representation of generations. So folks who bought those homes, a few of them are actually still in it. When I said that there's the 40% of homeowners that are in the neighborhood have been homeowners in that neighborhood for many years. And so we have stories about before the creek was shut off, their access that we're documenting. And we're working with the students to talk about, now that they may have the creek open, what they would do with the creek. Let me just give this plug, which I'm not supposed to give. The creek actually runs, if you're familiar, sorry for the non-Sacramento folks that I'm using all this jargon. The creek runs from Rancho Cordova, which is one side of Sacramento, all the way to Clarksburg, which is wineries. And that's my end game. I'm trying to get this project one day. I would just love to one day be tipsy on a bike, riding down to the winery, getting wine. I'm going to be honest with you, we're starting with this half mile, but when you talk about there's so much potential here, and that would be a great end game.